Hi, I just wanted to take a moment to introduce myself. I'm Carl Dietrich. I'll be your instructor for this course. I hope you enjoy it. If you have any questions or concerns, feel free to contact me. Thanks. Alright, I've launched Excel. I happen to be using Excel 2010. If you're using Excel 2007, it should look very similar. If you're using older versions, you won't have the ribbon perhaps, but you can always just hit Alt F11 to get to the development environment, which is where we want to go. If you hold your mouse over here, you can see that Alt F11 will open the Visual Basic Editor, or you can go ahead and just click the Visual Basic button. And here you have the Visual Basic IDE that we'll be using to do our programming in this course. So before we get any further into the IDE, I want to show you some of the other programming components that are available within Excel. If you click on the Developer tab, you'll see some of these, and if you have any trouble finding the Developer tab, or if the Developer tab is missing, you can see the link on the course content page on how to get that tab to show up. Some of the things the author points out on page 11 of the text are these macro items. These macro items will allow you to record macros, which you may have used before, but what you may not have realized is that when you record a macro, it's actually writing the VB code for you, which you can then go and view in the IDE or edit. And the other thing we want to pay attention to here, as we'll need it for our assignments, are the different controls that we can add. So if you go to Insert, you'll see there's two types of controls, Form controls and Activex controls. The Activex controls are what we're going to be interested in initially, because we can create buttons, drop-down boxes, image controls, and other things which will allow us to carry out the functions of our program by clicking on them. Form controls behave similarly, but as the author describes, the form controls are managed by assigning new or pre-built macros, whereas these Activex controls and their functions are managed by your VBA code, which you'll write. So I'm going to do something here similar to what the author does on page 12 and 13. I'm going to go ahead and add a button to this Excel spreadsheet. And after adding that button, if I want to change any of the properties of it, I can click on Properties. And here you see where you can change the name of the button, the caption that appears on it, the color, and various other properties of the button. And because I'm in design mode, clicking on the button doesn't actually do anything, but double clicking on the button will allow me to go straight to the code for that button. If I weren't in developer mode or design mode, the button then is a functional button that the user can click and perform a function. As you can see right now, you click it and nothing happens because there's no code behind that button. So from design mode, you can double click the button and go straight to the IDE. It's just another way to get there. You could have also hit Alt F11. And because that button is on sheet 1, the area that we're in here is the sheet 1 area. If you are going to be writing general code that you want to apply to any sheet in the workbook, you could go to this area. Notice that since I'm in sheet 1, drop down on the left contains a general worksheet area, as well as this area, which is for the button. Now this command button is called Command Button 1. It's an object, and all of the properties and methods associated with that object are shown over here. These are actually all the events that could occur. So someone can click the button, they could double click it, they could give the button focus, press a key down, and various other actions that could be performed on that button. So now we can enter some code. What do we want to happen whenever this button's clicked? This first line is just going to make sure that the current sheet is selected. It's going to select cell A1, and this code can be found on page 15 of the book. I'm also going to add a comment here. Anytime you use the tick, which is right below the quotation mark on the keyboard, you can type comments. So if you're writing your code and you want to put some reminders in here of what you're doing, or if you want to put some notes to someone else who may be looking at the code, you can type whatever you want after a tick and it doesn't affect the execution of your program. You'll notice I'm getting some help here from the Excel application. It knows that cell is an object, so as soon as I type cells and hit the dot, I get a list of all the possible methods, properties associated with a cell. In this case, we want to work with the cell's interior and change the color index of that. And we're going to set it to a random color. You don't need to understand how or why this works. At this point, we just need to know that we're entering some code that's going to get executed when the button's clicked. RND is a random number generator, so what we're really saying here is we want to change the background color of the sheet to one of 56 random colors. So now we can either close the IDE or we can just use the taskbar to switch back to the sheet. Want to make sure we've exited design mode so that we can actually click on the button. You'll notice now every time we click on the button, background color of the sheet changes. In many more traditional programming texts, the first program you write is usually a Hello World application. These authors kind of dive right in and get into some more advanced topics right away. But we can also use this button we just created to do that Hello World example, and we'll use a message box as described in Chapter 2 on page 40. So again, we could just switch back to the IDE, or alternatively you could go back to design mode, double click the button, get back to the area where your code is, and we're going to use a message box and have it tell us Hello World. At this time, I'm also going to save my work so that I don't lose it. You'll notice here the extension XLSX. We want to change that to XLSM. If you save your files in XLSX, the Excel sheet itself will be saved, but none of your code will be saved with it. So when doing projects for this class, make sure you always switch that to XLSM if you're using a newer version of Excel. Exit developer mode. Clicking the button now changes the background color and presents us with the Hello World dialog box. I hope this video is helpful, and by the end of the week everybody should be able to do something very similar to what we've just done here. I also encourage you, as you read through chapters 1 and 2, to download the accompanying files from the book files download. It's available on the course content area of the site. There you can find some Excel sheets that the author uses in the text, and you can walk through those as you read. Go ahead and go in, hit Alt F11, check out the code, see how the programs are working, and then give the assignment a try.